Julie, we're here because the United Nations has declared 2012 as the International Year of the Cooperative. And this declaration has been confirmed by the United States Senate, and to really draw attention to the impact that cooperatives have on really all aspects of business in this country and all over the world. NCFC represents farmer-owned cooperatives, and so we have taken advantage of this declaration to also declare 2012 as the year of the farmer cooperative. And we're taking advantage of that to really highlight, for purposes of affirming, the role that co-ops play in bringing value to their farmer members all over the country, in a whole variety of products ranging, everything from milk to cranberries to almonds. It's a very, very diverse farmer-owned cooperative sector in this country, but they all share that common value of bringing value to their membership. And we're bringing this to the attention of lawmakers. We're bringing it to the attention of people that have the ability to influence public perception out there, to underscore that value quotient for farmer-owned co-ops. The other part, though, that we think is very, very important for people to appreciate is, while we're certainly about adding value to our farmer members, is really the impact that farmer-owned cooperatives have on rural communities and the towns in which we do business. We create a lot of jobs across America. We estimate well over 250,000 direct employment of farmer-owned co-ops, billions of dollars of economic activity that we create within this value quotient, and it's really a remarkable business model when you get right down to it. And we believe that business model should be celebrated today, really, for the future that it brings, in terms of, we believe, enabling the farmers, the ranchers, and the growers of this country to meet the challenges that that this planet is going to face going forward. Many of those challenges driven by the fact that we are just going to have so many people to feed on this planet, that without remarkable productivity, without remarkable ability of co-ops to sort of link that farmer member with customers all over the planet, that without that we're really going to face sort of a humanitarian crisis in terms of availability of food. With that, though, and by working with that economic model, we believe we're going to be equipped to meet a lot of those challenges.
So is that why UN would think this is significant enough to have the year of the co-op?
There's no question that a big driving force, and I was present at the United Nations in New York when they formally made this declaration. A big portion, as they recognize the role that they see co-ops, all co-ops, but farmer co-ops in particular, playing in terms of meeting a lot of the international challenges that we're going to face all over this planet. And again, obviously, probably the biggest of those challenges is just 9.3 billion people. How are we going to feed 9.3 billion people, just over the next several decades, as they, continue to see population explosions in much of the world, where food supply is already relatively scarce, and how do we bridge that gap? We believe this is a wonderful opportunity for U.S. producers. We believe it's a wonderful opportunity for U.S. farmer-owned co-ops to play a huge role in linking, our farmer members with those customers here in the United States, but all over the planet, in meeting those needs going forward.
So is the co-op model a model that could be exported or should be exported?
Well, there's a lot of co-ops involved in food production all over the world today, and many co-ops in this country are involved in various development organizations that work with producers in local areas, whether it's Africa, South American countries, to help them and give them the expertise of what we've learned here in this country to form these co-ops, so that they are really able to do what is the fundamental of principle of co-ops in America today, to do as a group what they may not have the size and the scale as an individual to achieve. That's the same principle of co-ops here, but it also works in many of these developing countries, whether you're a coffee producer or whether, you're a producer of wheat as an individual. You don't have much market power. You don't have much ability to do a lot with your product. But when you can get together with your neighbors and people in your community to market these products, to do these things, as a group, you have the ability to reach markets that otherwise would be denied of you.
So ties into one of the questions I already had, is NCFC doing anything to export the co-op business model, and is there room for growth domestically as well? And if so, how and where?
Well, I think there's continues to be tremendous growth for farmer-owned co-ops in this country. Again, a lot of the growth that we see down the road, a lot of the population increases that will drive that growth are going to occur outside the borders of the United States. And we believe there's tremendous potential for farmer-owned co-ops in this country to play a substantial role to do that fundamental thing where an individual producer in this country, really almost no matter how big they are as an individual producer, their ability to go and if you will, let's say develop markets in India or someplace like that, pretty limited as an individual, even among some of our larger producers in this country. But through their co-op, joining together with their neighbors and others around the country, they have that ability to see that link to where they are in effect a direct exporter from their farm. It just happens to be through their farmer-owned co-op. So I think there's tremendous growth potential.
Within the U.S.?
Within the U.S., yeah, I continue to see it, and we're seeing an enormous growth here in this country as well. This is a growing sector of our economy. Our agricultural economy remains strong, and that has provided an opportunity for co-ops to play, even more of a substantial role than what they have historically, whether it's, through purchasing of inputs and input needs in this country, whether it's fertilizer, feed, whatever the case may be, have been very, very strong, in order to meet and fulfill that growing demand. But as well, I think there's enormous opportunity as producers in this country are really looking more and more to have a better idea of what is this whole food production system like? Where is it coming from? I'm just walking into the store, but I want to know a little bit more information about about the products that I'm purchasing. And I think this is absolutely a made for publication, promotion of farmer-owned co-ops, where we are the ones, providing that direct link, in some cases from farmer directly to, to food retailer. We know our membership, we know what they're doing, we're on their farms, we're that link, I think, to give consumers that information that more and more are looking for today. So tremendous growth opportunities along those lines in the U.S. as well.
Well, consumers today are certainly much more engaged in the food system and understanding where their food comes from today, how it's produced, the safety measures, regulations. What role do co-ops play in that?
Well, first of all, Julie, let me just say, I think our producers in this country are strong producers and very, very sustainable in the way that they produce. And they couldn't have survived the kind of economic times that we've seen just, in the last few years without being, very, very sustainable in terms of prudent use of resources and absolutely maximizing, every input that they use in their operations. And, again, this is, I think, a strong testimony to sustainability. Part of that, I think, and part of the role of the co-ops is to make sure that consumers do understand just what producers are doing in terms of change in their own operation to absolutely make sure that their footprint, if you will, on the environment is being minimized to the maximum extent that they can. And I believe that it is. I think we've seen tremendous change on the farm in terms of whether it's fertilizer use, whether it's manure applications, whatever the case may be. These producers know what they need to do in order to produce in a sustainable way. they're doing that. I think we, have a substantial role to make sure that consumers understand that as well when they go in, because you're right, they are demanding more and more information about where, how, why this is being done. And I think the co-ops have to play a substantial role in making sure that they have that information, because again, we are the ones providing the link. We're the ones on the farm with the producers. We're the ones involved in some cases directly marketing to the retailers. We have that information. We know what our producers are doing.
And even animal care and handling seems to
Absolutely.
be a top concern.
Yep, there's no question about it. And I think there's a role for the co-ops, not only in providing, I think, the good information, because, again, I think our producers are the absolute, best at caring for their animals. And that is completely sustainable to them. It has to be sustainable, because animals that aren't well cared for are obviously not going to produce economically in this country, and we know that. So it's an informational thing, but as well, I think the co-op provides that forum whereby the producers can come together and learn, and there's an educational aspect in terms of what is the latest information and technology that is out there in terms of animal care, and how do you get that on individual farmers to make sure that, again, they're not just relying upon the past, but aggressively going forward, raising their animals in such a way that it meets the standards, the best standards that we can put out there, and certainly the standards that our consuming public expect from us.
What are your greatest hopes for co-ops in the future, and what are the greatest challenges you see for co-ops?
Well, I think they're one and the same, Julie. I think our greatest hope, and I think our greatest challenge, is the role that farmer-owned co-ops, particularly U.S. farmer-owned co-ops, are going to play in terms of being there for consumers of the world 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And we're going to see again, a tremendous increase in this population. If we fail at what we do, if we fail at what we're doing, there's going to be a humanitarian crisis, probably of a proportion that we've never seen on this planet, just in terms of people having enough to eat. But if we do our job well, and again, I believe the co-op business structure is the means by which we link up farmers, with customers all over this country and all over the planet. If we do that job well, I think it's a tremendous opportunity. It's a tremendous opportunity for our producers to grow and make a profit at what they do, to provide for their families. And it's a tremendous opportunity for us to stave off what otherwise could be a crisis. And I actually think it could be a wonderful opportunity to be that, if you will, reason why this planet supports that many people, and does so in a way where they are able to provide the same for their family, just like we would expect people to do in this country.
Well, certainly not seeing our land base increasing, but our population will. So the challenges going forward are going to be tough.
It's an enormous challenge. I don't think there's an expectation that we're going to break out massive amounts of new land on the planet. That's not probably sustainable, and so we're going to have to be a very, very productive agricultural economy. I think that again is a wonderful opportunity for U.S. producers. It's a wonderful opportunity then for their co-op to be involved in linking them up with those consumers. Great opportunity going forward.
Moving into, I assume I've seen you've taken a position on the Dairy Security Act and the Voluntary Margin Protection Program. Other than that, what other Farm Bill issues are you working on that will have the biggest impact for farmers?
Our policy on the Farm Bill starts, Julie, with the fundamental principle that we want to make sure that we've got the resources in the Farm Bill to actually write a good farm program, if you will, and I include dairy in that equation too. This is the 7th Farm Bill that I've worked on, and really every Farm Bill since 1981, for the most part, has seen declining farm program payments. First Farm Bill I worked on, roughly 70% of the USDA budget went for farm program payments of various kinds. Today that number is about 8%. So tremendous decline over a relatively short period of time. So our message to Congress, first and foremost, is we recognize we have a budget crisis in this country, but farm programs are not the reason for that crisis. As a matter of fact, we have been so prudent that we've gone from 70 to about 8. And, if others had done the same, we wouldn't have a budget crisis in this country. So, don't shoot, if you will, the one industry that has played this game, fairly responsibly. Not fairly, very responsibly. And so that's our starting out, our core message is, give us the resources we have to have a good farm program, a decent safety net for our producers. They want to produce for the market. They want to produce for this growing international market, Julie, but recognizing that that growing market also results in a lot of volatility. And the up and down pressures of prices, producers do need that safety net out there to make sure that during those very, very bad times, that there's at least a little bit of a cushion that enables them to bounce back and enjoy what we think will be more and more better times, but still recognizing that they need that safety net. They can't have the safety net without resources.
In the Dairy Security Act, it looks like the safety net is proposed to change a little bit based on profit versus tied just
Margins,
to milk price.
Yes.
Tying the milk price to feed and other input prices. Any comments on that?
Well, historically, obviously, the dairy program has been very much a price-based, a blended price-based type of program. And, we have seen a changing dynamic in the U.S. marketplace in recent years where, the cost of feed has become a dramatic part of the profitability of all livestock operations, but dairy, in particular. And so the notion of the price of milk is only one equation in that profitability, and the other part of that equation has taken more and more of a front and center role. And we've seen periods where we had pretty decent milk prices, but feed prices were so high that in effect the dairy producers were worse off than what they may have been. So the notion of a margin type of dairy program has come into play where you factor the difference between feed costs and the price of milk, again, in order to provide that safety net when the producer really needs it, and that's when you've got relatively low dairy prices, relatively high feed cost. That's the perfect storm, if you will, for economic problems on dairy farms, and that's what this new dairy program is trying to address. Are those periods where the margin that the producer receives is so bad that they're in need of the safety net, and that's why we have all of these programs, is to be there as a safety net.
So with the elections, how much movement do you expect on these issues in the Farm Bill?
Well, there's no question that the presidential, this being a presidential election year, makes it more difficult to write any legislation in the House or the Senate, particularly farm legislation. You typically don't plan to do difficult legislative issues in presidential election years because Congress just typically doesn't do a whole lot. This year being no exception to that. They're more focused on campaigning than they are on legislating, and that's been true for a very, very long period of time. So writing the Farm Bill this year is a challenge. We were pleased to see the Senate Agriculture Committee just last week, 2 weeks ago, report a bill successfully from the committee, and that's a big first step. A number of us basically said you can't finish a process that you don't start. And so it was a start to the process, and we were thrilled to get that bill moving.